How has one of the coolest events in disc golf completely flown under the radar? An event that isn't about a player, not even about a team, but about countries pitted against each other to win that trophy. Over the past 17 years, there's been a tournament off and on that pits the United States of America versus European disc golf. It's called the President's Cup, and this is the story of how one side has never won. But could they? Is it possible to one day not be the underdogs, to rise up and defeat those who have yet to be defeated? All the way back in 2006 would be the first year of the President's Cup, a new format, maybe not for golf, but for disc golf. In Europe, before the European Major would hold an event that would put the best disc golfers from the U.S. against the best that Europe had to offer. Captains would be chosen, players would be picked, and they would go head-to-head in groups for points. The team with the most points after 2 phases would be named the champion of the President's Cup. Phase 1 would be stroke play, 9 holes where 2 European players and 2 US players would play 9 holes together. The player with the lowest score would gain the most points after 9 holes, then how the rest placed on the card would gain less and less points. Phase 2 would be match play, where players go head-to-head against each other. The winner would get 3 points. If they tied after the 9 holes, both would gain 1.5 points, and if you lost, you get 0 points. It's an interesting way to change up a tournament for disc golf, but all of this would only occur over 18 holes. In 2006, the U.S. team would have players like Ken Climo, Avery Jenkins, Nate Doss, and David Feldberg. But not just men would be in this event competing for their team. FBO players like Valerie Jenkins and Carrie Berlager for the U.S. would join in. Same amount on each team for FPO and MPO. European greats like Jesper Lundmark and Carl Nybo would be on those European teams as well. Not every year would be a President's Cup. Over 17 years, it's only been held 11 times. Over the course of many years, more players have been added, so the point totals have changed, but what matters in the end is who has the most. In 2006, 7, and 9, the event would be held in Tampere, Finland. The first 3 events would see some of the best ever from the U.S. competing, but it was a team sport, so maybe the European players could hold on. For those first 3, that wouldn't be the case, as the Americans would take down the President's Cup every time. But things changed in 2010, at least the location did. For the only time, it would be held in the U.S. at Winthrop, where USDGC is played. Again, the Americans would defend the cup. From there, it traveled back to where we know it now, at Nokia, Finland, with the European Open. Over the course of 17 years, it became clear that the U.S. was ahead of Europe, winning sometimes with 27.5 points to 4.5 points, like in 2009, or in 2011 when it was 29 points to 9 points. But then something changed and it became much, much closer. I don't want to say that one player joining is the difference, but when Simon Lizotte joined the European squad in 2013, it became a real race. This is what this tournament builds, where the whole thing can come down to one match. Tied at 24.5 points both, there was just one match left. Paul McBeth versus Simon Lizotte. Hole 18, Paul's up by 1. Here's what happened. After the OB got him, Simon just couldn't bring it back. For the first time, though, it was really close. Now the true capability of what the President's Cup could be was born. But the streak would continue for the U.S. no matter how hard the Europeans tried. It would happen often that Europe would be in contention or even in the lead after Phase 1, but then in Phase 2 would crumble down in the stretch. Like in 2019, when Europe after Phase 1 was in the lead 16.5 points to 11.5 points. The problem would be the final 9, when every single American man won their matchup. The European women would control a lot of the points over the U.S., but in the end, again, U.S. comes out on top as they close it out in the match play. This 2019 President's Cup would mark 9 straight victories for the Americans. But again, like a lot of things in disc golf, COVID happened and threw us a curveball. The 2020 and 2021 European Opens wouldn't happen, so neither would the President's Cup. Now we get to some disc golf that's very recent. 2022 would make for an awesome... Oh, never mind. The U.S. absolutely obliterated the European team, 34 points to 18. This is what the captains had to say after their round.
On your side, KJ, Canute was the only one to pick up the victory during the match play, but what did you have to say to the team?
They fought it well, and hopefully next year we'll do better. The weather was great, so a little windy, but yeah, I think we did good, but yeah, it was just a tough battle.
That they were bringing their best team ever, but I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm hard-pressed to think of a better team ever assembled in disc golf history than the one we had. I mean, 49 majors on our team. That's pretty remarkable.
2023, yeah, this is the exciting one and most recent. When looking at the rosters, both sides are stacked. Tatar, Bloomrose, Antila, Samarat, Makala, Leitinen. The only player missing would be Simon for the European roster. For the US, you had players like Eagle and Calvin, Paul and Ricky, Isaac Robinson and Contreat Allen. Both sides were stacked, and again, the pacing would be set for the Europeans. After round 1, they would be in the lead, 14.5 points to 13.5 points. But here comes the match play again, and this is where you can really determine how deep your bench can go. Here's the thing about this format. If you can get your team off to a hot start, let's say the first few matches that tee off first, then you can jump ahead and maybe mitigate how much impact the later players have. Starting off would be the FPO matches, Tatar vs Allen and Bloomrose vs Gannon. This would be the perfect setup for the European team. Get Tatar out there, bank some points, get your team on board. Exactly what she did as she wins 4 up. Same with Bloomrose, she wins her match 2 up. Great start for the Europeans, but now it's time for the top dogs of the US to take over. Eagle, Calvin, and Isaac would all win their matches to bring it back into contention. In the end, it would come down to 2 matches, both of them on the final hole. Dickerson vs Makala, Dickerson up 1 on the match. Here's him putting on the final hole.
To the 18th, Dickerson through the tree, needs this to stay all square. No, hanging up.
Oh my goodness, it's in the tree still.
Such an unfortunate roll from his disc back behind that tree. So Makala is going to have a short putt to win the hole and get back to all square, tie it up.
Every time we turn around, somebody's doing something to help the other guy out. Goodness.
After that match concluded with Makala tying it up, it was all down to 1 match. Again, who else would it be? Paul McBeth to bring it home for the US. Facing off against Leitinen, McBeth was 1 up with the final hole to play. Here's the thing though, if Laurie could win this hole and tie it up, the Europeans would win by 1 point. But if McBeth holds on and wins, they win outright.
That's going to sting. Should the U.S. hold on? They certainly gave them their chances today, didn't they?
Plenty. Macbeth's disc is rolling perilously close to the OB, but it does stay safe.
That's a good contender to have it in.
Not a bad guy's hands for it to be in at all. Lowry, disc away. He's waving it down.
This is going to be much shorter.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that hits the post. Did it stay safe?
That's on the
off
other
the
side.
Post?
Red
No.
flag.
He does not.
After Laurie just barely would go B, all Macbeth had to do was play it safe. He taps in his par, takes down another President's Cup. Here's team captain Nate Sexton with the 11th straight President's Cup titles. This has to become a bigger thing in disc golf. Arguably for ball golf, its counterpart in the Ryder Cup is maybe the second biggest event in golf behind the Masters. And it's very similar to disc golf's President's Cup. I would love to see disc golf change towards looking like that. So here's how the Ryder Cup works. Instead of 1 day of golf where it's 2 9-hole rounds with matches, the Ryder Cup does 3 days of matches. Days 1 and 2 include matches of alternate shot and 4-ball matches, which is where both members on your team play the hole and the lower score of the 2 is what you take. Then on the final day, it's all singles matches, which is where it gets crazy. This is what I think that the President's Cup should change to. Instead of being the day before the European Open, do what the Ryder Cup does and have it travel. Make it its own event. The fan experience at the Ryder Cup is insane. And I can say that because I've actually been to one, and it was awesome. But what the Ryder Cup does is that it's every 2 years, and the location rotates from being somewhere in the US to being somewhere in Europe. Make this the disc golf event that everyone wants to go to. Instead of taking 10 players, up it to 12, 4 FPO players, 8 MPO players. Don't make it based off the year prior's world rankings. Go off of how they're ranked so far in the year, and have the final 2 picks of your team be based off of your captain's picks, not a fan vote. Everyone gets to play. Some sit out on the first 2 day matches, but on the final day, it's 12v12, every match for a point. But picture this, starting next year, the President's Cup is its own event, completely its own weekend at a course like Eagles Crossing or De La, somewhere the Pro Tour doesn't have an event and it can be its own thing. But just for 2024, in 2026, move it back to Europe, and not Nokia. Somewhere else. I mean, they have so many high quality courses there, why not move it? If the people at the top want to change disc golf up and make some events that fans can get super excited about, where they can root for their team, the President's Cup is a chance for that, to take an event that already has some history and make it part of the mainstream. What do you guys think about the President's Cup? Is there a chance for this to become a much bigger event in the disc golf scene? Comment down below what you think about all of it. Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe. It helps out a lot. Alright, we'll see you guys next time. And oh yeah, go Team USA.